let me introduce today's guest. And this is so cool. This is so cool that this shiny, shiny person that I'm about to introduce, I bet all of you know. So maybe some things you didn't know about John, who is not John Stewart anymore. He's John Clarence Stewart. So John Stewart is originally from Stone Mountain. Wasn't going to go into theater. Actually had a football scholarship. Thankfully, came to his senses. He graduated from Columbia State University. His professional theater debut was at the Alliance Theater in Whipping Man, which, if you did not see that performance, was fantastic and is still, I believe, memorialized on the hall leading to the Hertz stage. He also performed in Choir Boy Christmas Carol Songs to Grow on Bull Durham at the Alliance. He moved to New York. He ended up in LA. He made his TV debut in Gotham, his first major role, Luke Cage, then What If on Netflix, and up until about 2 weeks ago, and we'll find out, because we're just going to ask him if there's going to be a second season, he was starring as Simon in Zoey's Extraordinary Playlist. He's a singer-songwriter. He's a poet. He's family. So come join us, John Clarence Stewart.
What's up?
He's taking this deadly seriously, so that you all know. Just deadly serious.
It's so weird.
It is weird. It is weird. Welcome. Well, I would say welcome back, right? Because you're in a room largely populated by Atlantans. But where are you actually at this moment?
I am in Orange County in California right now at this very moment.
Golly, that's a bastion of Republican thought. John, what are you doing there?
Staying inside the house and not going outside at night.
So this is going to be one of those honest conversations. Bring it on.
Yes, what's up?
So how long have you been in LA or Orange County?
I've been in Orange County for a month and a half. I've been in LA for going on 2.5 years now. I moved here to do What If, and I decided to stay. And then we shot Zoey's Extraordinary Playlist in Vancouver. So I spent like 6 months up there and then came back and just been in this limbo spot. And I was doing the Airbnb thing back and forth for a bit. And then we hit pandemic and I was like, oh, this is not sustainable. So then I found a place in Orange County with some friends, and that's what's up now.
And what do you do? What do you do to stay sane?
Well, the big thing for me is I've had to reassess my relationship with my creativity, because so much of my creativity is wrapped up in commerce, wrapped up in capitalism, wrapped up in like who's going to pay me to be creative. And I've had to kind of deconstruct that. So now, to stay sane, I play music and I dance. I do that every morning. I dance for like an hour to 2 hours every morning. Sometimes I go on, it's kind of weird, but like I go on Instagram and I'll do this like thing where I have a studio here. I set it up. I take random songs from people that come into the Instagram live, so I don't know what's gonna come. And then I just freestyle to it. And I'll do that for an hour, 2 hours. And I'll write a song, or I'll write a poem. And then after that, I will sometimes get back on Instagram later. It's a lot of Instagram. So I get back on it and I'll do like a music share. And so there's people from all around the world, and I love music. It inspires me. And I just say, what music makes you feel good? And they just send me songs and I play them. And then I make a Spotify playlist and share it with everyone. And it's just things that I do to stay okay in this whole thing.
So we have to dig into the dance thing for a moment, because I love the trajectory of never studied it, but I did watch my mom do liturgical dance and I kind of tried to do that in my room, and now you're choreographed by Mandy Moore. So let's talk about that trajectory, shall we?
Yeah.
How the heck did that happen?
Yo, I gotta say, Susan, well, one, you hit the nail on the head. My mom, my dad was a pastor, and my mom led worship at the church, and she would also do like liturgical dance. And for me, when I would see her move, it was very inspiring, you know? And I was in my room by myself. I would turn on these like, you know, worship songs. She'd listen to all kinds of stuff. And I'd turn on the music and I would just move and I would try to do what she did. But I'd never tell anybody that because I didn't think it was okay for me to do that. So it was only what I did in my room alone. Fast forward to, what is it? Going to my first college at Columbus State University in Columbus, Georgia.
Bus.
Yes. I auditioned for a scholarship there, and I told them that I didn't sing and I didn't dance, and they said, we don't need you. And they gave me a tiny scholarship, and so I went there. And when I was in a musical, we did Pip in the musical there. And when I did choreography, my body was just open to it. Never picked up the mantle as dancer because I know people that work very, very hard to be dancers. They train. That's my story. I just love moving, and dancing makes me feel free. And when it comes to acting as well, dancing is a way that I get in contact with the whole instrument. I kind of like integrate it so that then when I'm acting, I have access to the whole thing, you know? And so it's become a part of my process, acting-wise as well. Now, when it comes to Zoey's Extraordinary Playlist and Mandy Moore, I didn't know I was gonna be dancing in the show, when I auditioned. When I auditioned, I just had the pilot and the song. And for me, I mean, I still didn't wanna own that I sing at that time. Like a year ago? I didn't wanna own that that was a part of what I do. And as a matter of fact, Jane Levy, who plays Zoey, we worked on What If together. We were all out having drinks after we wrapped. And she said that she was working on this new show. She was the lead, and they're looking for this guy, and he has to sing. And Summer, who was in the show, said, John, don't you sing? And I said it in passing one day on set. And I was like, yeah. She said, you sing? I said, yeah. And she just wrote something in her phone. And then my agent reached out to me in LA and said, John, do you sing? And I said, yeah. She said, for real? I was like, yeah. And then I got the audition. And I saw the character, I saw the song. I realized that it seemed like in this show, it was going to be less, like it was going to be musical theater-y, but it wasn't going to be like South Pacific, you know, that wasn't the mood. It was gonna be something else. And I felt like maybe my voice matches this because I like to sing, but I like to sing a specific way. And I don't want to do something that feels contrived. So I thought when I auditioned for this, I'm going to bring this to me. I'm going to bring sense to it. And then I went in, auditioned, I booked it. Then when we got to the first table read, I found out about Mandy. Mind you, I know who Mandy Moore is. Like, I've watched So You Think You Can Dance since the beginning. So when she showed up in the room, I was fangirling, but keeping it contained because I'm an adult.
That's right. That's right.
So
Trying to maintain serious leading man energy in the room.
Yeah, like that kind of energy, right?
Uh-huh.
And then the showrunner Austin said, "Okay, John, so this song in the pilot, we know that you sang it in the audition, but we want to try to do something that's more dance heavy as well. So we're going to try a version of this that's like really dancey. Is that okay with you?" And I was like, I don't want to get fired. So yeah, like yes, it's okay. I'll give it a shot.
Right answer.
Right. But then when we started moving, Mandy, for one, was really shocked at the way that my body moves and the shapes that my body chooses to make. And she was like, "You don't have any training?" And I was like, "No." And she was like, "I don't believe you. I just don't believe you. I just don't believe it." And I was like, "Oh, I have no reason to lie to you. I'm not lying." And as we continued to work on it, we came up with some beautiful stuff that we didn't end up putting in the pilot because it didn't test well with audiences. It was too contemporary dance for the pilot. But then as time went on, dancing became something I looked forward to more. Dancing became part of my creative identity and something that I own. It became something that, at least Mandy would say, you know, when I come into the room with you, John, we're creating together. Like, I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know what your instinct is going to be. And she says, the thing that interests me so much about your dancing is that it's always with intention. So I see the way that your acting mind integrates into your body. And sometimes for dancers, it's different. It's body, and you have to try to integrate this character and motivation. But for some reason, with me, when I'm dancing and I'm invested in a story and an intention and a character, it's integrated in this way. And so we built some of these things together in this wonderful way. So now I'm a dancer, light. I'm like dance light. That's yeah, that's the story.
So and if there is anybody who's on the call who hasn't seen Zoey, fix it. Just fix that. I'm not going to tell you about it because it actually, on the face of it, when someone describes the series, it sounds impossible that it would work, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But the first time you sing in the series,
mm-hmm.
You know, you have always been a person who has a kind of truth about every moment, whether you're in stage, conversation. There's just an authenticity to you that is phenomenal and rare. And I thought about that as I listened to you sing Mad World about the loss of a father and knew a little bit about your own story. How did it feel when you read that script and realized what that story and what that song was going to be, considering your own story?
When I read the pilot, I wept. And I thought, I have to go in for this. Like, this is built for me. This is made for me. And I felt like in each audition, I remember I called my mom after each of them and I said, I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but I think I did Dad proud. I think I did Dad proud. And that was just my goal. I just wanted to do my father proud when I went into the audition. And before we went in for the final test, I had a conversation with Austin, the showrunner. And he told me why he wrote the show, which is kind of a love letter to his father who's passed. He had the condition that Peter has in the show. And we had this conversation for 30 to 45 minutes about our fathers and grief. And then I went in and read, and it was intensely personal. So much so that I encountered a lot of resistance, a lot of, you know, there were parts of me that wanted to sabotage because I knew it was, and everybody knew it was close to home. I mean, when I auditioned, I had a picture of my father that I used. And even in the pilot, they let me use a picture of my father. And I remember the day before we were going to shoot it, I did something that I don't normally do. I pulled the director, Richard, aside and I said, hey, I'm going to need space tomorrow when I do this. And he was like, okay, all right. And I was like, okay, because I'm going to have to go to a space and, you know, and then before I went up, I had a, you know, breakdown of a trailer. And then I went up and he sat me down, and I love him for this so much. He sat me down and he asked me, he said, how many of these do you think you have in you? And I told him how many I thought I had. He said, great, this is the plan. This is what we're going to do. No one's going to talk to you other than me and Mandy. That's it. No one else is talking to you. You do whatever you need to do. You take whatever time you need to take. And after each take, I would do the take. I had 2 songs that I was playing on loop for myself that are very personal. And I would do the take, and then I would sit down on the couch in the office. It's interesting how when you're locked into a truth or an honest space, the way that, at least for me, the way that I have to take control of the entirety of the space. So I went in the room and I cleaned everything out that was trash. Like all of these little things, I put everything in the way that it needed to be. And before each take, I would go and check every single thing. And I would sit down and listen to the music, and they would wait for me, and I would nod, put them down, and then we would start. And it was my first time as well taking complete ownership of my process on a set, and taking up the space and realizing that they expected me to take up the space. They wanted me to take up this space. There was a reason that I was there. I was there for that. And whatever I needed to do that, they were willing to oblige. Because they knew it wasn't coming from ego. It was coming from, what did I need to do to tell the truth? And by the end of it, after it was over, it was really quiet, and people came, and they were very affirming. But at that point, I was like, look, man, I don't care what you all think. I know I did my dad proud. Like, that was all I had. I did it. And we did it. We did 2 versions of the song. We did one version when I was sitting down, the one we used, and we did one. I was like dancing and flinging myself all over the place and singing. And we shot each version in total, maybe like 9 or 10 times a piece. And so that's a heavy emotional price tag, you know what I'm saying? But after it was over, I went to the trailer, bawled, let it all out. And it kind of, it affirmed to me that I'm enough. It affirmed to me that I have something innately, and this is something that's been a part of my acting journey throughout the years, is realizing that because I do exist, because I do have a perspective and point of view, and that perspective and point of view is simply because I'm a human being in the world, in John's skin, living and seeing and taking in things, all of that goes into the characters that I play. So there is automatically a fingerprint when I accept all that I am. There's not something that I have to, there isn't something outside of me that I need to take and try to make fit. When I accept this vessel and the truth of it, that is the fingerprint. And I move from that space. And then I go into the rooms, and when I accept all of that, it resonates as authenticity and true, because it is. I'm not anyone else but me. And there's this piece that comes along with it, which goes, this is my version of this thing. If you don't want that version, okay, but this is my version. And that gives me a lot of power, I find. And as an actor, I've coming into contact and being in conversation with my power throughout my career has been a process, because there are times when it feels like I have none. And there are times it feels like people are looking at me like I have power. And I'm like, what do you mean? I don't have any. And they're like, no, you're in the room. You're in the room. You're here for a reason. I want to know what you think. And it's taken a long time to accept that I have a lot of power when I move into spaces. I'm talking a lot.
I love that answer. And I think way back when you were in Whipping Man at the Alliance, and I think about your 2 other partners in that show who are sort of themselves master classes in what I would call soft power, right? I think Keith Randolph Smith walks into a room and you think, my God, the man's a mountain, and you quake a little bit, right? And then he turns out to have the most gentle soul. You
Mm-hmm.
have Jeremy Aggers, who I always feel at the end of every rehearsal day that I should have like EMTs waiting outside, because he's so given all of his heart and soul and body into what he's done that day and left nothing. And I want to hear a little bit about how you build communities of collaborators when you're in a process, be it a theater process, be it a screen process. How do you draw, how do you give your energy and draw the best energy from the people you're working with?
It's a beautiful question. I think that I learned a lot in Whipping Man with Keith and Jeremy. Um, they, I mean, I was so green, Susan. Like they were so patient with me, and they allowed me to be where I was, and they affirmed that there wasn't something that I needed. Like there wasn't that there was no one to fool. Like there was no like there was no one to I didn't have to like try to be a thing, you know. And Keith, he gave me some of the most profound and annoying advice at the time, which always comes back. He would give me, I would ask him a question and he would tell me a beautifully poetic and profound answer. That is just, it's almost like there's a scroll in his belly that he's just like taking out and showing me, right? And I'm like, wow. And then he says, now mind you, I say the opposite is also true. So unhelpful. Like,
Good luck.
And the way, and I realized that so much of this, it's so individual. It's so individual. It's so specific. And so when I go into processes, be it a theater process or a TV film process, I move with honesty, and that means that sometimes it's really uncomfortable to be one of the folks in the room that admits that they don't know. I remember in the rehearsal process with Whipping Man, Keith would I think it was the first rehearsal. He said I ask a lot of questions, and I was like, this guy he's the vet, you know, he's the one that should have all the answers, and yet he was like, I ask a lot of questions. And he would ask questions about things, and I was like, bro, it's the answer. Like, it's like right there. But the question would lead to a deeper understanding, and there was this still like powerful humility in it. This person who was like, I am in service to the text, and I'm in service to this character, and I'm not going to take these things for granted. So let's explore. And when I come to processes with that mindset, and not only that, I mean, something that also lands on me is that when I'm on set, or when I'm working on a show of some sort, being in the room, rehearsing is part of it. Being outside of the room, connecting as human beings is also part of it. That's just as important as me working with someone when the camera's rolling, is who I am with them when the camera's not rolling. And when we shot the pilot of Zoey's, I'm very insulated. I'm an introvert. I like to be alone a lot, probably too much. And I forced myself out of my comfort zone to go to do karaoke with the cast. Even though I didn't sing, it was just to go and be there with everyone. And while I was there were these little moments, these little conversations that I would have with them, where we ceased to be, we were not only co-workers, we became fellow human beings on this journey together. And those things become the sinew that affect the entire process. Because then I see them, and when we have a hard time on set, or when I don't understand what's going on, or something feels like it's way over my head, or there's relationship that we're building, and there's a mutual respect there. Also, I'm genuinely learning from people. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong to be communicative about something I'm learning from someone I'm working with. I think sometimes ego says, no, they have to think that I already knew that. Fuck that. Why? Like, it's so much energy. And for example, with Zoey's Skylar, he taught me a lot. He taught me so much. I mean, we went in and we had the first table read for the network, and Austin said that we were going to be singing live, and everybody was stressed. I was incredibly stressed, and because we had some conversations beforehand, we looked across each other at the table, and he looked at me, I looked at him, and he was like under his breath, he was just like, I got you. And I was like, okay. And then he asked the question that we were all thinking. He was like, okay, so how are we going to do the cues? How are we going to make sure this thing moves? What are we going to do about this, that, and the third? Because that's his expertise. He knows that. He knows the questions to ask. And he put me so at ease with that. Same thing with Keith. Keith would do the same thing. Jeremy would do the same thing. And I find that as time goes on, I play that role for other people. Like, I'm on set and I'm working with Michael Thomas Grant or Kapil Talwalkar, who are playing some of the programmers, Keith and Leaf and Tobin. And they'll pull me aside and say, hey, so I'm really stressed about this thing, or I'm feeling like I don't really know what to do. And I find myself pulling from what Keith told me with Whipping Man and giving it to these guys. And they're looking at me like, like I got this scroll in me that I just was born with. But no, like, he gave it to me, and I'm giving you the same ridiculous thing. It's like, to everything I say, the opposite is also true. They look at me with the same, But that is like this thing as creatives, like it's cyclical, right? I feel like there's an ecosystem to it. Like, we're all water, but we're in different forms at different times, right? And it's okay. It's okay. It's okay to be rain. It's okay to be snow. It's okay to be the water that's in a deep well, and it's okay to be the ocean or whatever. You can be where you are, and that's all right. And I don't have to act like I'm fucking rain when I'm not. And that releases so much pressure.
What I love about that is the cyclical image, because I do think so much in our world and in our field particularly indicates that you're supposed to be on a linear path, right? And okay, I've done that, it's in the rear view now, and on to the next and on to the next. And the idea of cyclical learning is everyday beginner's brain, right? Every day there is somebody out there who has something to teach you. Mm-hmm. And maybe there's somebody out there who has something that they need to learn from you, but that it's not, well, I'm done with that now. I'm done with that now. Every day.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, I'll build on that. I think that if the cyclical aspect of it, I think it's the spiraling upwards, like movement, and it's circular and it's spiraling in this fashion. And so when I realize, there's a feeling that I have every time I start a project, period. I am deeply aware of it. It's a feeling of being insufficient. It's a feeling of being an imposter. It's a feeling of, I don't think that I'm going to be able to do this. It's a feeling of, why the fuck am I in this room? All of those feelings. And every single process, that's there. And so the spiral is, it's a different process. It's a different group of people. The stakes maybe feel like they're higher, but the sensation is the same. It's the same feeling as when I was cast in Whipping Man, the same feeling when I was cast in Zoey's. And it's becoming really familiar with it and kind of holding space for the cycle. It's going to happen, and then figure it out, and we're going to figure it out together, and we're going to get to the end of it, and then there'll be another one. And that's the creative process for me.
So I want to make sure that we leave some time at the end for folks to ask questions, but I want to hear a little bit about some of your pivot points, right? So talk to me about that moment where you went from, okay, I'm an actor in Atlanta to I'm going to New York. What was the decision-making process, and what did the landing feel like?
The landing was jarring as hell. Landing was jarring. Roger Mitchell told me something that stuck with me, and I didn't know how to integrate it at the time. But he was like, you don't have to change your pace in that city. Like, you don't have to change yourself when you get there. Like, you move the way you move, and that's the thing. Like, that's the thing about you. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. And I thought I understood it. And then I got there, and I remember standing, when I first got settled, I was sleeping on my friend's couch. And I was standing at the precipice of the apartment building and the street. I think it was 137 in Lenox. And there was this current. It felt like there was this current that I was going to step into and get swept away by. And I was like, okay, whoa, you know? And it took me years to go, oh, wait, that's an illusion. Like, that's an illusion. I'm a guy from Georgia. This is the way I move. This is who I am. I don't have to be like this person or that person. I have this thing, and that's enough. And then I found that people's energy started shifting around me. Like, I started dictating the energy in the space because I was so at home with my own. And that was ridiculous. But to the answer to the question specifically, I did a show at Humana Festival. The process to going to New York was twofold. One, choir boy put me in New York working. And I remember I talked to Wallace Smith, who was in choir boy as well in New York. And he told me, he said, here's the thing, man, why not? I mean, if you have it, just come and bring it and see what happens. There's nothing to be afraid of. And I was like, that's cool. I went back to Atlanta. And then an opportunity happened to go to Humana Festival. I went to Humana, and it was my first time leading a show where I was like the titular character in the show. The show was called Brownsville Song B-Side for Trey, and I was Trey. And after it was over, while it was running and after it was over, I had all of these actors and people coming up to me who were like, well, one, they were like, have you ever thought about moving to New York or LA? And I was like, no, I haven't. It's not like a thing. Like, I'm very happy. I mean, I made my living as an actor in Atlanta. I was like, I had a studio. It was $500 a month right across the street from Piedmont Park. Like, it was small, but it was mine, and I was good. And then after that, there was a casting director, John Hort, who works at ABC. And he reached out to me after Brownsville and said, hey, I really think that, I don't want to push you, but I really think that you could make a go at it in New York. And then I talked to Iraj. And Iraj told me, hey man, if you're gonna do it, you can do it now. Like, why not? And I talked to my community and had a lot of fear about it, but then it was a reading at the Kennedy Center, and Greg Henry was there, and Greg and I, we built a relationship over the years, and he asked me, he said, what's the next move for you after Humana? And I was like, apparently, I mean, New York? I don't know. Like, people are talking to me about New York. And he was like, so when are you going to go? I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't know. He was like, well, here's the thing. So there's people there that want to meet with you after Humana. I was like, yes, cool. He said, all right, find a flight. And I was like, what? And he's like, find a flight. We'll work it out. Just find a flight. We'll get you there. And I picked a flight, and I don't know how that happened. I don't know if it was personal. I don't know if it was Kennedy. I don't know how that happened. I don't need to know. All I know is that he made that happen for me. And then I got up there and I was sleeping on a friend's couch. There's a trend here, a lot of couches. And I went into these meetings. I went to meet with John Ford at ABC, and he introduced me to Marcy Phillips at ABC. And we had this meeting. And before I read for her, we talked for like 35 minutes. And she was like, so why are you here? And I just started bawling. I was just like, yo, man, like, I'm only here because I have so much support. Like, there's so many people that support me. Like, you know, I wouldn't be here without the people that believe in me. That's it. And she told me this, and I'll never forget it. She looked me dead in the eye and she said, you need to know this, that nobody is doing you any favors. And I was like, that's odd. And she was like, people are investing in you. It's because there's something about you. If people are investing in you, then there's a reason. Like, there's a reason. You're not an imposter. There's a reason. No one is doing you any favors. And I was like, and then after that, I read, and she asked me if it was okay if she passed my information on to other people. And she did. And that solidified the decision for me. I was like, you know, I'm never going to feel ready. There's always going to be fear. But my career has always been a process of leaping and kind of figuring it out as I go, being honest about not understanding and not knowing. And I always run into the right people. And I don't think I'm an anomaly in that way. I think that when we step outside of our comfort zones, whether you decide to leave, you know, whether you decide to leave Georgia or stay in Georgia, there are still comfort zones, and there are ways of getting outside of them. And when we get outside of our comfort zones, I find that the universe responds. And when we're honest about where we are, the universe responds even more because the teachers start showing up. Whether they're in a moment where they walk with us for a while, or walk with me for a while, they show up. And if I have ears to hear, and like I'm curious and willing to try, then things continue to shift. Mind you, I went to New York. Things didn't happen the way I thought they were going to. I thought I was going to go there and like be on Broadway. No, that wasn't my story. I thought I could have sworn that I was going to go there and be a series regular on something. Even I didn't even know what that was. I was like, I'm going to be on TV a whole lot, or I'm going to do I'm going to do big things. And I was there for what, almost a year before anything happened. And, but that was also the journey. It was like, I showed up, I did my part, I showed up, and I continued to show up with auditions, had a lot of shitty auditions, some terrible audition stories. I mean, I remember going in and having one line to say and being so nervous that I could not remember this one line. And the casting director, who saw me at Humana and was very invested, was like so annoyed. He let me start again and again, and he said, John, just say the fucking line. And I was like, okay. And I said it, and I went home and I cried, and I was like, I'm never gonna work.
Oh, I hope that's on tape somewhere. Really hope that's been captured. So I'm gonna I'm reminding people on the call, you can ask questions a couple of ways. You can go down to the chat or the Q&A and write a question in, and we'll read them out. or you can put your hand up, and we'll see your hand and unmute you so that you can ask a question. And while people, we got one. Go, Cheryl Brookwood.
Hey, how are you, Susan?
I'm good.
Wonderful. John, I'm not sure you remember, a long time ago, Synchronicity.
Yeah.
Best Christmas pageant ever. Say, first of all, how proud everybody in Atlanta are. I'm going to speak for all of us and say we're so proud of you. And it's only what you showed back then anyway. You know, after all, you were destined for that. Question is this. I know you said you didn't get to Broadway and do things on Broadway per se, but if there was a role on Broadway you could do, what you're aspiring to do, what would it be?
Yeah, I don't think the role has been written yet. I like to do new work. So I like to do new work. I'm going to do a new musical or a new play. I have some friends who are incredible playwrights, you know, Jure, Cord Tuttle. We're familiar with these names because they're incredible and they've been in the Atlanta area. There are things that I'm working on myself that I'd like to see go the distance as well. So I don't think that they've been written. I think that there is a specific kind of, there's specific stories that I want to tell. And there are ways that my vessel can be used to tell those stories. And that's what I want to do, you know? Now, if there is something that, if I was forced, between something that does exist like right now, there is a play written by my friend Lee Edward Colston II. It's called The First Deep Breath. And it's pretty much, it's a Black family, but it's like August Osage County. So it's like an all Black family, and it's like the dynamics in the family drama. And I mean, I haven't read a show that blew me away like that in a while. And they did a run of it at Victory Gardens in Chicago. And I know it's on the trajectory right now. He's a good friend. I remember crying in his room like 4 years ago when we were both broke and being like, what are we gonna do? This life is so hard. And now he's writing on For Life and Fargo, and he has this incredible play that's making the rounds. I'd love to be in that. I think it's gonna, Black people seeing themselves as a family written by a Black voice with the base, like rooted in now, with all of the gender, religious dynamics, questions about identity, questions about love between family members. I want to do that so bad. Yeah.
Okay, duly noted, by the way.
So,
Betsy Helmer, you are up. I think you are still muted. Can we, there, did I make you live? There you go. Betsy Helmer, you're up.
I can't.
Betsy, are you muted? We see your picture. Oh, okay. I think we've lost Betsy. Other questions? Other people who just want to shout at Jon Stewart?
Can I say this real quick? Lark.
I wish you would.
Hey,
Lark.
I love you. That's it.
Yeah, I wanted some Lark time. Oh, Danielle Hopkins. You are live.
Hey John, what's up? No, like, dude, I love you on Zoey's. Like, seriously, I'm super glad to be able to talk to you today. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but I just admire your emotional availability, even in those, you know, there's some silly moments on the show, like just watching Jealous last week, or, you know, little things like that. But you always seem to connect in these moments. And I wonder what you do in your everyday life, in your personal life, so that you're available for whatever at all times.
I think that journey is one that has to do with like self-care. I think as actors, as creatives, yes, and as actors who use our instruments, you know, in these ways that people don't normally use them. You know, people don't normally put themselves in positions where they're going to have to be affected and be where things have to land, you know? So therapy for me, that's been a journey over the years, prioritizing that, journaling, a lot of times getting language around my emotional world. A lot of times things feel really deep and nebulous, and that's wonderful, but it helps to be able to communicate what's going on as well. I find that in personal life and in professional life. And so there's the journaling aspect as well. I think that another thing is the journey for me has also been accepting what I need to do to stay well and whole. And so accepting the fact that I have to be alone sometimes. That's just the way that I am. And so if something's going to cost a lot from me, I'm probably not going to be around people as much, because I'm just going to be a little more sensitive. I'm going to be a little more raw. And I'm already a sensitive dude. So like more sensitive, I'll just be alone, you know? But those are the things that I do. So it's therapy, journaling, and meditation as well. Yeah.
So Betsy Helmer came back, and her question for you is, who are some of your favorite acting teachers that you've had over the course of your career?
Okay. All right. Favorite acting teachers. Well, I'll just name the acting teachers that I've had. So at Columbus, Rebecca McGraw, she was my first acting teacher. Rebecca McGraw, then Laurie Strickland, who was in Atlanta for a bit, and Harrison Long at Kennesaw, Larry McDonald at CSU. But here's the thing that I find. And in New York, there's this guy, his name is John Shear. And John Shear really affected me a lot when it came to TV. Because he has this workshop where it's named a director's workshop. And so every day you meet up, he puts together these groups with the director and the DP, and 2 actors. And you pick a scene, you meet 45 minutes before class, you talk about the scene, kind of storyboard it, you go into class and you get there. The whole point is to shoot it in 40 minutes. So you're up, you're working, and he started talking to me about, okay, he's talking to the directors about how to communicate to actors. He's talking to actors about how to communicate their needs to the directors. And that was really helpful as far as integrating, you know, acting and technique into like usage in the real world, and how I communicate my needs when it's like when the director doesn't have time to direct me, and the director's goal is to get the shot, knowing what I can ask, who I can ask, the question, what to say, things that give me a little more power in the space, that make me feel more comfortable. So John was really helpful with that. But I'll say this as well. All of my teachers, there was a time in my life when I got really overwhelmed with a lot of teachers, and I read a lot of acting books, and they really stressed me out. I was reading a whole lot of acting books, and it was right before I dropped out of my first school. And I was like, I didn't know I was going to keep doing acting. I was going to quit. And because I just felt so, like I had so much technique that I was losing my impulses, the thing that made me me. And educational theater was the thing that kind of shook a lot of the cobwebs off and gave me the room to integrate things again. So I think that there's technique and all of these different things that are really, really helpful. And educational theater for me was getting in touch with, the vessel itself. What is this thing doing? What do I want right now? The immediacy of the moment. And then, all of the technique, those became tools, as opposed to, the Bible. So yeah, that's the answer that I have.
So we have time for one more question, and I love that the last question we have time for is this question because it's really cool. So the question is, how do you balance the spiritual, artistic part of this craft with the business of working in this industry? Bam.
Oh, good. Okay. So I think that for me, well, I have to be straight up. The journey has been a long one when it comes to finding this balance, right? There have been times when I thought, this spiritual thing, it's really great, but it's so esoteric. It's not real world. It's not tangible. What am I going to do? I have to hustle. I have to grind. I have to make these moves, et cetera, et cetera. For me, I find when I'm in that space, when I'm in that state of mind, I'm expending a lot of energy, and it makes me feel like I'm on the wheel. And so now in my journey, my spiritual world directly influences my business world, directly. So, for example, I don't want every job. I don't want every job. It'll be the right job. It'll be the right thing. And in my life, when I've accepted that, then I go into spaces and with auditions and with people, and there's this other lens that I have. I don't need this thing from you, because if it's not right, it's not right. And I'm in touch with my gut enough to know when something isn't right. And I'm not trying to override it because I'm like, no, but this is a good business move right now. I gotta choose to work with this person because, like, even though everything about this person's giving me the heebie-jeebies, like, I gotta suck it up and just deal. Okay, that's a way of doing things. And there have been times in my life when I have done that. The cost of doing that has far overweighed what I got from it. There's this element of trust that I have. Like, I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, right? This is my path. This is also a long path. It's a long path. There's no shortcut thing, right? So I'd rather take my time and be in this spiritual space and allow that to affect and guide me to choose the relationships and the people that I work with and the collaborators that I choose to connect myself to, because I'm building this thing that has to be sustained, right? And that gives me this, I feel like it makes me feel grounded. It makes me feel grounded in rooms with people. It makes me feel grounded when I meet executives and people that I think, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's this other, like, I have to do this way or that way. And that's just not true. Like, they're just human beings and they're on their own journey with their own path. They have their own insecurities. They have families. They're trying to figure shit out, just like me. And when I come at things from the spiritual perspective, then it influences the way that I interact with them. They're not these, I'm not a commodity solely, and they're not these people that I'm trying to get something from. I'm actually interested in you. I'm not playing the role of being interested in you. I'm actually talking to you. And I find that in this business, that's rare. A lot of times people aren't actually talking to you. They're talking to you to get something you have. They don't care about you. They ask you about your family. They're not really listening to how your family's doing. They could really give a fuck about you and your kids. They're just like, okay, blah, blah, blah. Now I have this proposal, right? But when I talk to someone, if I ask them about their family and I mean it because I'm actually concerned or curious, then it starts something that's genuine. And that genuine connection, that's the thing that is built upon with a long arc, right? Because I find that the people that move things in my life, the people that are my allies, a lot of times I don't even know they're my allies. They're people that I met 3 years before that could do, they did nothing for me 3 years before. There was not, but the relationship wasn't built on that anyway. The relationship was built on an actual connection. I was being who I am. And because of that, they're paying it forward 3 years later, which led to humanity, which led to going to New York, which led to Zoey's, which led to What If, that's a lot of no's, but it's the right yes, right? And that's, yeah.
So what I love about that answer, other than its beautiful content, is you put the period on the sentence and my little clock went 3 o'clock. Perfection on Zoom. John,
What's up?
thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for your not unexpected but wonderful honesty. And know that I love that the first comment began with someone saying, "We are proud," because there is this enormous community that watches what you do with such pride and such a sense of, well, all must be right with the world because look, good things are happening to a good person. So thank you for spending time with us. Is it getting renewed?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. We're in limbo.
I'd hate if I didn't ask that question. Okay. Have the most wonderful rest of your day. Thank you everybody for being on the call today. I hope you're staying safe and healthy and somewhere in the suburbs sane. That's a pretty good goal these days. And everyone be well. And John, again, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, y'all. Love you.
Bye. All.